Hey, thank you for joining us today. We have a very powerful program and a phenomenal guest, Dan Rouse from Infusionsoft today. He's going to talk to us about the Dream Manager program. And this is in my view, a very transformative way of motivating and empowering not only the employees and staff that you have, but as well, it applies far outside your law practice or your business. It applies to anything. It could apply to your spouse, your children, just about any aspect of life. And Dan Rouse is the dream manager for Infusionsoft, which is one of the premier software companies in America. And I was very fortunate to attend one of Dan's programs for the Dream Manager where I was certified. And Dan basically took me through the process. And so I want to thank Dan, first of all, for taking the time to be here. Before we begin the show, though, I'd like to share a very personal story. About 2 years ago, my wife came to me and she was considering a run for a New York State Supreme Court justice. It was a long shot. In her political party, no one had been elected in 18 years. And the odds of her winning this were about zero. And in fact, nobody wanted to run for the position because this really was viewed as almost a sacrificial offering. But Lisa came to me and I said to her, you know what, if you don't run, you've got a 0% chance of winning this race. But if you do run, you've got a shot. And what better example for our three kids than you going out there, taking a big risk, facing failure, and going against all odds, because that is an invaluable lesson. The pursuit of dreams is extremely powerful. So that was back in the summer of 2014. Fast forward to Election Day in November of 2014, same year. Lisa not only was the first of her political party to win a New York State Supreme Court justice in a 7-county region, but she won by an overwhelming margin. So whenever someone tells you that your dreams are not possible, that you can't do it, listen to the story of Lisa Fisher and what we're going to have today from Dan Rouse. He's going to show you not only the procedures for setting up the Dream Manager program for your business, but he's going to talk to you about the benefits of doing that and how it could apply not only to your business, but also to your personal life. Dan, thank you for being with us.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me join you here on this Facebook Live. This is fantastic.
Well, Dan, can we, for many of the people who don't know what the Dream Manager program is, I was introduced it through Matthew Kelly's book, which I highly recommend, The Dream Manager. It basically nuts and bolts gives you all of through a storyline, how to set up a Dream Manager program. But Dan, can we start with a simple explanation? What is the Dream Manager program and why should anyone be interested in this?
Fantastic. All right. So I want to just take a minute and I want to explain what a dream is in the first place, because I know that there's, I appreciate that attorneys like to understand the definition of words. And so I want to pause for a minute and I just want to define for my definition of what a dream is. Now I know that's dangerous, maybe with a group of attorneys to try to define anything, but let me just try to define briefly what I would say a dream is. And so I want to explain it, and then I'm going to show you a visual to kind of help you understand why I think that most companies, every company should be considering having a dream program or some function like it. We, as you know, we have a biological propensity to fall into a bit of a rut. Just like a deer who wanders to water and gets a drink of water and wanders back, if it doesn't die, it's going to take the same path again and again and again until eventually a little rut is formed, a little path in the ground, and it's going to consistently follow that path again and again and again. That's just the way that kind of biologically we're formed. It makes sense, right? Our brains like consistency, our brains like normal, our brains like predictability. So we have this tendency to create a rut for ourselves. Now, dreaming is simply identifying things that are possible, but not within the rut, that are possible, but not a part of our default setting. For me, it's not a dream to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich because I have peanut butter and jelly sandwiches all the time. Does that make sense? That's part of my rut. That's part of my default. Now, if I said, all right, I'm going to eat something very different, then that would be maybe a dream. Maybe I want to eat at the best restaurant in the world. That would be a dream because that's not what I do every day, right? And so for us, we define a dream as something that is possible, but not reasonable, not something that's going to happen every day, but that also lives in language. In other words, we have to give it words. We have to have some definition around it. I remember a moment where I was working with a dreamer, and he said, "You know what my dream is, Dan? My dream is to drive a tank." And and I'd never really thought of driving a tank. It never really occurred to me. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm interested in driving a tank, actually. And so I said, yeah, me too. I'd like to try to drive a tank. Well, the important part was that needed to live in language. So it had to show up in some words. And once it showed up in language, then it became a dream for me. So it needs to be possible, not reasonable. It needs to live in language. And then the final definition is it has to be desirable. It has to be something that draws you forward, something that gets you excited. And that's where we really start to tie it into the work that happens with your employees, with your spouse, with whoever you're connected with. It's trying to understand what are the things that aren't a part of their current world that are desirable, that would pull them forward, that motivate them to make change, that would motivate them to maybe make some different decisions in their lives. And so in your case, John, where your wife said, hey, my dream is to have this new position, she was able to kind of have it pull her forward a little bit.
Well, Dan, there's something I've got to share with you and all of our viewers. This is my dream book right here.
I love it. This is fantastic.
I started writing down my dreams with the idea of writing 100 dreams in my dream book.
Yeah.
About 2 years ago. I have well over 100 at this point, and I just marked it off. I've accomplished 14 dreams in this dream book. Some are relatively small, some are big. But there is real power in documenting your dreams and reviewing them on a regular basis. Can you comment on that?
It's magical. And I don't even know, I don't know necessarily why it works, to be honest. Like there's some magic in it. I know that there is a lot of psychology in the subconscious and all of that, but there's magic in articulating a dream. I can't tell you how many times since I've been a dream manager at Infusionsoft for the last 3 years and worked with hundreds of different people on their dreams, how many times someone will come to me and they'll say, Dan, you remember the dream we talked about that you had me write down and we put on the wall? Do you remember that dream? Well, you'll never believe what happened. And at first I didn't really believe what happened. It was a surprise to me, but now I see that it's kind of predictable that when we articulate a dream, and that's an important function of this dreaming program, is helping people even articulate, even identify what a dream is. And when they do that, you'll come to find that dreams start popping up in people's lives and they feel progress, they feel confidence, and they feel themselves moving forward. Now I want to show just one slide to kind of give you the rest of the landscape of what dreaming does for an individual and why we're interested in it as a company. And so I want to show this to you now. So I talked about this rut that we might be in, and then identifying these dots out here are going to represent dreams. Now, if somebody decides to go after a dream, what happens to the rut? It gets bigger, it grows, it expands. And if I go after another one, it expands more. In other words, our default gets bigger and bigger the more dreams we go out of our comfort zone to pursue and then accomplish. I had one dreamer that said, before I started dreaming, the things that were possible, just the things that seemed impossible now seemed reasonable. The things that seemed reasonable now seemed inevitable, right? Those big dreams seem to get closer and closer the more dreams we go after. And why are we interested in that? I'm going to have them pull back up the slide and show you why are we interested in having the people who are accomplishing dreams within our organization? Because my question is for you, which employee would you rather have? Would you rather have the one who hasn't accomplished any dreams and is hanging out in that rut and showing up to work every day in a predictable way? Or would you rather have the dreamer who's kind of come out and accomplished some things in their life? And so you'll see this tiny little green line represents a distance traveled, having gone out and accomplished a dream. And it could be something like, man, I traveled to Germany. I never thought I could go travel internationally. We had an employee that traveled internationally for a wedding for the very first time. And she came back and she said, this was her quote, "It seems like everything's changed." And that's kind of simple, right? That's kind of simple. And so I think there's something really powerful in the transformation that begins to happen and the growth that begins to happen as people accomplish their dreams.
Hey, Dan, I've got to share something with you. And you and I met at Icon 17 We
Yeah.
had a dream manager program in my law firm, and we started up, and there was some resistance to it at first, and there still is a little bit. But we had an 18-year-old receptionist who no one in her family had ever owned a home.
Yeah.
She had never really traveled outside of the Northeast. And so I didn't really know how invested she was in the Dream Manager program. But she came back to me one day and said, you know what? I've been pre-qualified for a mortgage, and I'm trying to find a realtor right now, which was so cool. First person in her family ever to buy a home. Now, she hasn't done it yet, but she's pre-qualified and she's on the path. The other story I got to share with you was the same employee said, you know what? My husband and I, we booked our travel plans to go to Colorado. It's been our dream to go out to the West and see the Rocky Mountains. And I thought, that is amazing that through the power of dreaming and getting her to document her dreams in a dream book, because everybody who works here has a dream book. We share each other's dreams. There are dream sessions that we'll go into in a moment, but it's the power of dreams, because once you show your employees that you care not just about what they can do for you, but you care about their personal dreams, their highest ambitions and goals, magic happens, because they become devoutly loyal to you and they will walk through walls for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, when we started the Dream program here at Infusionsoft, we did it because we believe in people and we believe in their dreams. We care about them. But we started to see these incredible results that show up as we engage and we invest in people's dreams. Because when I think about any relationship, when I invest in you and I show that I care about you first, I'm the first one willing to say I love you in a relationship maybe. And I say, hey, I care about you and I don't care who knows it. And when that happens, there's all of the fear melts away, a trust is built, and in that trust is where real magic begins to happen. And especially in the world of dreaming, you may be, as their employer, the best person, the most qualified person to give them hope that they can go grow and expand and develop as individuals. But second, you're probably the one who they're most interested in the opinion of, whether they like you or not. For you to value and care about them is an evidence that they have something worthwhile to give to the world. And when they feel that way and they begin to grow, big things are going to start to happen.
Hey, Dan, a lot of people watching this, lawyers and non-lawyers, are thinking, why would I even bother setting up a Dream Manager program? Why wouldn't I just send a check for a couple $1,000s to my employee and let them figure out how they want to spend it? What would be your response to that?
Yeah, here's the thing, because I'm not interested in this being just an employee perk program, because what you're describing is more of an employee perk program. Hey, we love you, good work, here's your Christmas bonus, good luck. What I'm interested in is an employee development program, and how do I grow and develop my employees in a meaningful way? And like I mentioned, we all have a rut and we're all going to be stuck in the rut. And if you just send me a check, I'm going to spend money on the stuff that's in my rut. What we're interested in is we're interested in the maturity and the growth that happens by choosing something that seems a little bit out of reach, that seems a little bit difficult, seems a little bit impossible. Well, there's a reason why those things are out of reach. There's a reason why I don't have those things. And only a part of that reason is our dollars. And so by helping people to articulate things that are outside of their reach, or something that they've always wanted but never been quite able to have, and then having them articulate it and then supporting them in the process of going and accomplishing that, is where we see the growth for the individuals, and not just, I like my job or my boss is nice. Because what we're really interested in Infusionsoft is a software company that's trying to compete with the Silicon Valley big names. We need people who are growers and not just employees, right? We need people who are growing in their lives and in their careers. And that's how we justify having them dream, and not just, handing an extra bonus check.
I have to share a story with you that you can appreciate. I've talked to my kids and wife over dinner about implementing dreams and that they should have a dream book. And initially, like a year ago or 2 years ago, they laughed at me. They thought it was a big joke. And they're like, what are you talking about, dreams? This is crazy stuff. And so I kind of let it go, and my wife didn't really support me at first on this. But about 3 weeks ago, my son, who's 17 years old, came to me and he said, "Dad, I wrote down 60 of my biggest dreams." I was dumbfounded by it. And I said, "Tim, tell me, what are your top 3 dreams on your list?" And he said, "One is to write 3 books, invent something, and the other one is to design a commercial building as an architect." So even though they hear me talking about the management of dreams and dreaming big, I didn't think it really sunk in until just 3 weeks ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my goodness. And here's the thing, because dreaming is really 2 parts. I'll teach you another little tidbit on dreaming. Dreaming is 2 parts. Dreaming is part imagination. So I can imagine what's possible out there. I can see big dreams. I can imagine something big. And you're going to have people in your office don't have that gene, right? They show up. They're very good at checklists. They can take care of simple things. But when you ask them what their dreams are, they're going to look at you a little bit blank-faced. And they may say, my dream is to get a nicer patio chair, right? And it's a bit of a limited scope as far as how far they can see into the future and what their potential is. The second half of dreaming, first half is imagination. The second half is execution, the ability to consistently and predictably go out and accomplish something meaningful. And what you'll come to find in your staff is there's probably about 2 types, right? You either get the imagination people in your office or the execution people in their office. And what dreaming kind of encourages is that people both work in imagination and in execution. And so where your son, that dreaming comes a little bit easily, I'm guessing there might be some execution problems that he's going to have to go learn if he's going to go accomplish those bigger things. And in the same way, you might find people who love to just stay in their lane and keep things pretty predictable. And those are the people who are going to grow and develop the most when we offer and encourage dreaming.
Okay, so now I think we're getting the value of dreaming, but our listeners who are watching, we're saying, well, how do we do this? How do we implement these steps? So we can, Ralph, Dan, can you comment? And Rob, if you could go to the slides.
Yeah. So I'm going to suggest just a handful of very simple things, right? So the first one you'll see here is that there's a great book called The Dream Manager. It's fantastic. If you get the book, you read the book, you're going to go, all right, I kind of get it in a deeper way. It's going to talk about the benefits of making sure you reduce employee turnover, that you increase employee engagement. You're going to get a vision of it. The second one is to hire a dream manager, which many companies can't afford, right? So the question is, how do we get a dream manager, the dream manager work inside of our building? And that is, hey, listen, what if we just, because John, I understand the way you've done it is you said, I've kind of self-nominated myself as the dream manager of my office. And I'm going to now take on a little bit of an extra role, and I'm going to be the dream manager for my team. And that's why you came out to our certification, because we said, hey, we want you to be the dream manager of your team. And by the way, the leader of a company, there's no one better to be the dream manager than the person who's leading the company. And because again, you're in a position where people are looking to you for leadership, and you're going to be in a powerful position to lead. And so the second one is kind of hire a dream manager, and you're the dream manager, right? And then the third one is to maybe create a dream fund, right, of some kind. And now, John, I'll have you lead out on that. Here at Infusionsoft, because we help small businesses succeed and we help grow small businesses, the way we do dream funding is we help them start a business on the side, and we help them grow a business to create additional funds in their life that they can go chase down a dream. But you do it a little differently. How do you do it?
A little bit differently, but one thing that I think is very cool is there's an attorney in West Palm Beach, Florida, who is in the business of growing entrepreneurs within his law firm. So there's 52 employees. He's the owner of the business. But what he does is he incentivizes his employees to try to develop their own side businesses, and whatever it is that their dream is. And so I first mentioned the Dream Manager program to him at a mastermind meeting about a year and a half ago. And at first he didn't say a word. And then at our next meeting, 6 months later, he said, oh, I've already implemented the Dream Manager program. We're running it for our 52 employees. That is the type of impact that you are having with the Dream Manager program. But to touch on the Dream Fund, what that really means is once the this is an optional program. So all of your employees do not have to do this if they don't want to. And there will be brushback at first.
By the way, that's really important that it's optional, because we have to choose, right? They have to choose into dreaming. You have to choose into growth. As a former school teacher, one of the things you come to realize is you can't force anyone to learn, and you can't force anyone to grow. And so the optional piece is really wise, because that allows them to opt in to personal growth, personal development, and all of a sudden that allows them to own it. And the owner's motivation is way more than the employee's motivation.
Okay, so what we'll do is we start with those employees who want to be part of the Dream Manager program. We start with the Dream Book. They write down as sort of a stream of consciousness all of the dreams that they have, long-term, short-term, moderate term. So a short-term dream would be within a year, moderate term would be between 1 and 5 years, and a long-term dream is more than 5 years. And you document the date of your dream in your dream book. And then basically what you do secondly is you have a dream manager. And as you mentioned, that could be the owner of the business, or it could be somebody in finance, like a certified financial planner who knows the business model and can help create a plan for your employees to reach their dream. So if their dream is to purchase the first home in their family, they can help them clean up their credit, get a down payment, set aside money from each check to get that done. And then the Dream Fund is step number 3. And what that means is when we have a settlement in our firm, we contribute money from every settlement. In this case, it's a minimum of $3,000, but it can be more. So depending upon the amount of the settlement, we could invest more into the Dream Fund. And that money is available for our employees to apply for grants. And the grant could be any amount. And then collectively, we as a group decide who gets the dream to access it. We don't pay for the dream in its entirety. So if a trip to Europe, pay $12,000, we might pay for airfare or hotel. We're not going to pay the whole thing, but we're not going to give them a check. If they don't want to pursue their dreams, we're not going to hand them a check for $2,000 or $3,000. They have to give a specific dream, and we're going to pay for part of it, because when they come back from that European vacation, they'll know that we played a role, not just in knowing what their dreams are, but helping them fulfill their dreams. And in my opinion, that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, I remember we have an employee that I've been working with whose dream was to be on a sitcom. So he came to me and he said, "Dan, my dream is to be on a sitcom." So some dreams will show up, will be very straightforward, right? It'll be like, I want to go to Europe. I want to travel to a specific place. I want to buy a home. Those are pretty straightforward because we know those, we've done them before, but other dreams will show up and they'll be a little bit different. They'll show up in a different little package. And so when he showed up and he said, "I want to be on a sitcom," I as a dream manager know very little about sitcom life. I know very little about Hollywood. And I think this is an important point to point out. As you begin to pursue this program, your job is not to be the expert in whatever the dream is. Your job is not to be the expert in finance. Your job is not necessarily to be the expert in travel or in, I had one woman that came to me and said, "My dream is to get married. Can you help me?" And, I'm not an expert in that, right? But the important part is, one, is your job as a dream manager is to listen carefully to the dream. Help them to articulate and put words to the dream, because the clearer the dream becomes, the more likely they are to accomplish it. So I sat and I listened to his dream of being a stand-up comic and then eventually being on a sitcom. Well, the story goes on that essentially I worked with him and I said, "All right, this seems like a cool dream, but how is that going to work? Because in order for you to chase that dream, what you're telling me is you have to live in Hollywood. And our office is in Chandler, Arizona. And it would be sad to lose you because we like you. You're a great employee. What can we do?" And this is where, as a leader of folks, there may come a moment where the care for the business and the care for the individual may come into some level of conflict. Now, this is okay, because I want you to make you aware of the fact that the care for the individual and care for the conflict are coming into conflict all the time in your business, but it's just not happening above the surface, right? It's not happening on the surface, it's happening underneath the surface. So we're now bringing it up above the surface, where this guy was feeling concerned about having a dream where he was able to chase down his sitcom dream. Now we know about it. It's above the surface and we can kind of pursue it a little bit.
Hey, Dan, I've got to share with the audience something that was extremely powerful. When I went to the Dream Manager certification program at Infusionsoft, at the end of the event, you had a young employee who was disabled in a wheelchair, who was an employee of Infusionsoft, and she came in and she shared a story how through the Dream Manager program, she had set aside money to buy a pickup truck for her father, who that was his dream.
It was better than a pickup truck. It was actually a Camaro. It was this
Camaro,
white Camaro. And now you have to understand, she came to the country. Her dad's an immigrant, a working blue collar guy. He's never really had nice things in his life. And here his daughter, who has been paralyzed since the age of 8 years old. Here his daughter has now created a life for herself, and she's very independent. She works for us in Infusionsoft. She does really great work. And I saw the video in which she hands her dad a little box and it has a key with a Camaro on it. And he's just over the moon. And again, like handing your employee a gold watch or a nice little pin or a Christmas bonus isn't life changing. It isn't transformational. It isn't going to change the way that they look at themselves and the way that their family looks at them. But when Juliet, this little girl in the wheelchair, shows up and she offers her dad a Camaro, and you see that his face light up, you see her face light up, you see this confidence just beaming out of her. We're changing the value of that employee, but more importantly, we're changing her life. And I'm just sentimental enough to say, hey, I think that one of the reasons that one of the benefits that we get to show up with, and if we're talking about the legacy we get to leave, is how do we impact and how we change the life of our employees. And the same thing with my friend who wants to do a sitcom. We found a way where we could craft his working schedule to where he could work remotely and he could live in Hollywood. And currently he's got his first paid acting job recently, and he's been working at it. And by the way, when I go to his leader and I say, how is his performance as an employee, right? Outside of the dream, how's his performance? And he says, he's our number one employee.
Nice.
He's absolutely killing it because he gets that he owes the company a great debt. And every day he wakes up going, how do I pay this off? And that wasn't our intent, but that's just how relationships work. That when we give something significant to you, there's a reciprocity that comes back.
And before we get into dream sessions and what happens at a monthly dream session, I have to share one other story with you. After my wife was elected to the New York State Supreme Court as a judge, my nephew had come to me and he said, you know what, my dream was to go to my alma mater, which is Notre Dame. He says, you know what, I'm giving up on that. I can't get in. It's just not going to happen. He had applied a couple of times and wasn't accepted. And he said, Uncle John, just forget about it. And I said, that's okay, Peter, because that's exactly what people said to my wife, that she should give up on her dream of being a judge. And so if you want to give up, that's okay. And he thought about it. He goes, you're right. Aunt Lisa overcame everything to get her dream. So maybe I should just keep pursuing this to get into Notre Dame as a transfer until I get in. And this turns out in December of last year, he was admitted as a transfer into Notre Dame. His dream came true. Very powerful stuff. And it's just about living outside our comfort zone, documenting dreams that are way beyond what we think are possible, because we're only going to get one chance in life to make this happen. But it's so powerful if instead of just doing it for ourselves, we can do it not just for our employees, but for our families, our spouse, our kids. Very powerful stuff. But let's talk for a moment about dream sessions. What happens at a dream session and what is the purpose?
Yeah. So again, let's make it very simple. You're going to get your team together. You're going to say, hey, you guys, I care about you. I care about your dreams. I'm interested in helping you accomplish dreams. Let's make a list of 100 dreams. Well, and then you're going to say, hey, if you want to, I'm here to help you to accomplish those dreams. And so I'm happy to meet with you and we can work through making a plan and really working towards accomplishing that dream. And when they come and sit down with you, that's a dream session. And initially, the first step is simple. I'm just going to listen. And I'm going to listen to the dream regardless of my own judgment about the dream. I remember the guy who came in and said, Dan, my dream is to own an Xbox One. Yeah, well, for me, that's not inspiring, right? For me, that isn't something that really moves the needle to own a video game console. But for him, it did. And so I listened to that and I said, that's fantastic. How can I help you? And we were able to get and accomplish that little piece, that little nugget. So the first step is just to listen, right? To listen to the dream. Once we understand the dream, the second piece is actually really important. We're going to invite them to do the research to begin to say, how do I know if this is something I really want to be committed to? So, for example, I had a girl that came in and she said, Dan, I want to run a marathon. This is a dream of mine. I always wanted to run a marathon. I want to run a marathon. And I began to ask questions to help dig in and research whether or not she really understood what it would take to accomplish the dream. And she said, I said, how much have you run? She said, well, I've never run at all. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, all right, so you've never run and yet you want to take on a marathon. I said, I think it would be good for you to go try out running and see if this is something that you want to learn about and understand and really understand what a mile looks like in a run and what 26 miles is in a run. And so we went ahead and she went out and she did some research, and that was kind of the next phase. She came back, and in the next session, I said, are you ready to commit to your marathon? And she said, you know what? I think actually I'm going to commit to a 10K instead of the marathon. And that's part of the process, is helping people to understand that, you know, maybe the thing that they're really dreaming about isn't something that they really want to be fully committed to. But if they're committed, then we invite them to commit, and we help them to create a plan of action on how to move forward towards that dream.
And that's really powerful, because the dream sessions don't have to be the business owner. They could be the financial planner, but it's a monthly session. We set aside about 30 minutes to meet with the dream manager, go through the plan, and get through the nitty gritty. This is where you not only form the dreams, but you develop a plan to make the dream come true. So if an employee wants to buy a new home, how are we going to clean up your credit score? How are we going to save the money for the down payment? How are we going to get a realtor for this? You go through step by step, and there's really no one better to do that, to help your employees develop a plan, than a financial advisor. It's big. But I think, Dan, you hit on a key point, which is our dreams are not just our business dreams, because if we're just focused on making money for our employees, number one, our lives are very shallow. Number two, our employees will know that we don't care about them. Yeah. And so focus our dreams in multiple categories. And we explore the different categories. You mentioned marathon, emotional, intellectual, spiritual, psychological, professional, financial, creative, legacy buildings, character, all of these different types of dreams that people have. If you have a dream that, for example, you want to end the scourge of diabetes. I have a friend right now who's lost 72 pounds at Weight Watchers. And you know what? He couldn't do it alone. That's why Weight Watchers is so successful, because of ongoing accountability. And that's why the Dream Manager program is so successful, because ongoing accountability. You're going to come back. You're going to see progress on a month-to-month basis. Get going, advancing towards your dream to the point where it's amazing. I could not believe 2 years after I started writing dreams in my dream book that I have 14 that I've accomplished, and I'm on the path to a lot more. So it's very cool.
Yeah, you get better at it, don't you? You get better at it as you go. One of the things that we've seen be really successful here at Infusionsoft that doesn't necessarily show up in every business, but I think is really powerful, is we not only have the one-on-one meetings where you have that 30-minute block once a month where you're meeting, and it can show up in different time frames. Some of our leaders will meet for 10 minutes once a week and kind of just check in on the dream, and others will have a little bit longer meetings. But one of the things we've done is we've dreamed together as teams. So you might huddle together, those who are participating, for a once a month check-in, because as powerful it is to have a one-on-one accountability, it's even more powerful if you have group accountability. We had one group that every week they would go out to lunch, and they were a little dream team. They would work together and they would go out to lunch, and every week they would go out to this Indian food place. They would order Indian food, and they would all share an update on how their dream was progressing. And I'll tell you what, the success rate of people in that group who had gone on to accomplish big dreams was fantastic. People got their pilot's license, ran marathons, started businesses. I mean, they did amazing things. And part of the reason was because they had that group accountability. And the group accountability may be even more powerful than just that one-on-one accountability. So if you are in an environment where you can, or it makes sense to say, hey, we're going to go to lunch once a month, and we're going to just talk about and check in on everyone's dreams to make sure that we have a way of creating a community of dreamers. And one of the benefits you're going to start to see in your company, and maybe you've already started to see this, John, is as people begin to understand that they have the ability to imagine, create, and then accomplish a dream, they're going to start to see things within the business that they can say, well, what if we tried it this way? What if we had this kind of experience? And as that happens, we begin to see innovation, more innovative and creative employees as a result of their ability to begin to innovate and create their own lives.
And Rob, Dan, I think you hit on a really key point, which is so cool, because when I was at Icon 17, there's a huge chalkboard that's enormous that has the dreams of some of the employees. So I think that that's optional with the Infusionsoft employees, but if they want to write their dreams on this enormous chalkboard, they do. And you see one after one, all these really cool, unique dreams posted. What I do, Dan, that's a little bit unique is sometimes to force myself to take action, I'll post some of my dreams and goals for the year. So I even posted on Facebook on my personal timeline that I want to be the elite small business of the year for 2018 at the next time. So that's a goal that I have.
Fantastic. So we have a program just to hold everyone, John, accountable for this. We have a program called Elite Forum in which we invite businesses to come teach them about culture and systems and business. And we honor one business for their success in creating an awesome culture and having great business growth at the same time. And so all of you can hold John accountable to that dream. But you mentioned something really important, which is, as we have a wall at Infusionsoft where just a chalk wall where people can write their dream down and declare their dream publicly. And if you ever want to feel a little squeamish, find a dream that's a little scary and then write it down and share it publicly. Because there's power in that. We recognize that there's a social accountability, and that social accountability is powerful for us. Now, I'm imagining, John, that there might be someone sitting there and going, yeah, but you don't know Darren in our office. Darren would never go for this. Or you don't know Jill. She wouldn't, she's not a fan of this at all, this kind of thing at all. In fact, there was a woman in our company who was, when I first introduced the concept of dreaming, she had her kind of arms crossed, her face scrunched up, and was very cynical and kind of said, yeah, there are things that I dream about and they're never going to happen, right? She was pretty open about it. And I think that first of all, like you said, I think you let it be optional. You just demonstrate care and you let the early adopters take it on and chase down some dreams and start accomplishing them. Well, this woman who I'll leave nameless, she started to get a vision of what dreams would happen. And she saw her fellow employees writing dreams on the wall. And the next time I even heard from her about dreaming, she stopped me in the hallway. She said, Dan, I'm taking my trip to Mexico and I've always wanted to do it. I've invited my friends and I'm going. The next time I heard from her, she said, Dan, guess what I'm doing on Saturday? I said, what's that? She said, I'm becoming a U.S. citizen. And she gave me a high five and she was so excited. And so I want you to have a little belief in the Darrens and the Jills of the world, the people who you think would be most arms crossed and most cynical about this kind of work. Because the reality is that we all, it's innate in human beings to want to feel valued and want to feel significant. We want to feel like we have a life that has meaning and it matters. And as a result, we all feel ambitious. We all feel desire to go and do a little bit more. And for some people, though, that's been buried for a very long time. And there are big stories that sit on top of their mindset around the possibility of them actually accomplishing something meaningful. And so, be patient with them. Let it be optional. Go take your early adopters, help them to have successes, but don't ignore them. Don't keep revisiting, keep questioning and checking in and seeing if there are dreams there, because I do think you're going to find that almost everyone, and I work at a company with a bunch of engineers who all are very analytical in the work that they do. And I remember one engineer in particular who walked out of a session where we were talking about dreaming and said, Dan, this was far more helpful than I'd anticipated. You know? And so I think that we should feel optimistic, because everyone understands that personal growth is a process of constantly pushing back horizons. And that's all we're doing here, is we're saying, what's the horizon that would get you most excited to get out of your chair and go chase something down? And we're just going to be supportive of that.
Hey Dan, I love what you just shared, because I have one of my paralegals, my star paralegal, is sort of like an engineer in the respect that she's extremely analytical. She, I don't think, has kind of revisited her dreams in a long time. And originally she was very resistant to this. In fact, she wouldn't even say a word when I'd bring it up. But the biggest motivational factor for people who resist the Dream Manager program is when they see others living out their dreams. So I had a receptionist who totally was all in from day one, and she wanted to go to Colorado. She wanted to own a home. And my paralegal was seeing all this stuff, and she was like, maybe it's not so bad after all. So it really, seeing the success of other employees is extremely motivational.
Yeah. And you'll have to, again, approach it a little differently. I mentioned that there are kind of two types. There's the type who's great at execution, and there's the type who's great at imagination. Those who are great at imagination, they're going to pick this up without any trouble at all. And your work as a dream manager is going to be to help nail their feet to the floor and say, hey, we got to do some work. Right. And that's where the accountability function is going to be really important for you.
Awesome.
Others,
yeah, go ahead, Dan.
I was going to say that there are others, like the very analytical types, who are typically going to have struggle with the imagination and really picturing something. And that's where your role as a dream manager, where you're saying, make a list of 100 dreams. How's your list coming? And you're helping them to get to dream a little bit bigger each time. That's where your help's going to be, because once they get that dream in place, they're going to be rock stars as far as going and accomplishing it.
Well, Dan, first of all, I want to thank you very much for taking the time to do this, because it's been phenomenal and I love it. The other thing is, I love Infusionsoft. It's been the customer relationship management software that I've used for my business for a long time. It is phenomenal. But far better than the software is people like you who give of their time, teach purpose, values, and mission, which I've embraced and adopted in my law firm, which I think is step number one to creating a dynamic, growth-oriented business, is having those core values in place before you even get started. But also learning not just from those values, but going beyond into dreams. So, Dan, if there's somebody out there who says, I would like more information, what can we share with them?
Yeah, honestly, I'm focused on the dreaming part here today. Obviously, we help a lot of law firms like you with their sales and marketing software. That's not why I'm here today. But what I want to offer to you is, if you want to dig a little deeper, I wrote a short ebook that talks a little bit more about how we think about dreaming and how you might get started with pursuing your own personal dream. And so I think it's showing here as a brief URL. You can go there. It's a free resource. And it's just a way of you to understand how to harness your inner genius and how to kind of dream a little bit bigger in your business. And how do you grow and develop your business in a bigger way? Because we've learned a lot about dreaming here. And we like to share that with the small businesses out in the world. Because obviously our passion, our purpose is to help small businesses succeed.
And to end this right now, Dan, to quote one of the characters from the movie Rudy, he said, dreams are what make life tolerable. And they really do. With the day-to-day grind, when we pursue dreams, it gives us energy, passion, and it gives us a connection with our employees unlike anything else. And so, Dan,
I might edit his quote and just say, dreams are what make work tolerable. You know, so man, it's funny because there's an old quote that says, he who has a why to live can survive almost anyhow. And we need to turn on, and again, you've discovered it. I hope more people go discover it, where you say, hey, listen, turn on this little fire and create for your employees a why, a meaningful why that they're showing up to work. When that happens, I mean, look out. Your problems will be they won't want to leave work. You're going to have to pull back on the reins. There are going to be other problems, but they're all the good kind that we like to have as employers.
Well, Dan, for me, this has just been a treat, and I hope it has been for our audience as well. So thank you again. Your advice and guidance is great, and I highly recommend anyone, if they have the opportunity, to attend the Dream Manager certification program that runs at Infusionsoft. I've experienced it. I've also been a member of the Elite Forum at Infusionsoft, and I can tell you that's one of the best investments that I've ever made in myself. And it's highly recommended. So, Dan,
if they have more questions about either of those programs, just reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's Dan Ralphs, or you can find me on Twitter at Dream to Lead. And so you can find me either way. I'm happy to really help. One of my dreams here is to help more companies help more of their employees to dream bigger. And part of that is to help them believe in the company that they work for and the purpose and mission and values that your company espouses. That's where the elite programs are really valuable. And then the Dream Manager certification is where you say, hey, I want to learn really how to do this well. And you've been doing it already before you came to the certification, and hopefully it was still valuable. But either way, reach out to me. I am happy to help, whether it's coming on with you, John, or if you want to find a time where we can chat one-on-one. I'm in the business of helping people's dreams come true. And if you have a dream that you're interested in, please let me know.
Hey, perfect. Dan, thank you again. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your time and the whole team, not just the executives at Infusionsoft, but the mid-level, the lower level. They're extremely generous with their time and advice, and it's been invaluable to my business. So thank you again.
All right. Thank you, John.
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for attending the program. Appreciate it.